How did it feel to you as a Palestinian watching South Africa making that case?
Wow. Well, first of all, I mean, as a Palestinian, I think the single most important thing is that I felt seen. I think all Palestinians on the day that South Africa presented their oral argument felt seen. Merely 10 seconds into the oral argument, they already began with an acknowledgement of the Nakba, which was extremely powerful because as Palestinians for the last 75 years, part of the oppression that we experience is the continued denial of the Nakba, the denial of what happened to us, what happened to our grandparents, and what continues to happen to us today. So for them to begin with that as a way to contextualize this ongoing genocide as a continuation of the Nakba and what happens when you have over 75 years of impunity for human rights violations, that was incredibly powerful. And so honestly, I couldn't be more proud. I couldn't be more touched. And I extend my deepest, deepest gratitude to anybody watching here from South Africa, to all the members of the team who pled, and to anyone who stands in solidarity with us worldwide.
Amen. And of course, there are more of those now than ever before. It's a pity so many tens of thousands of people have had to leave their blood on the ground to achieve this level of international solidarity. As a lawyer yourself, what impact do you think the case was making on the distinguished, one hopes, distinguished judges on the bench?
Well, if we look at South Africa's case, we can see that they put forward a very convincing case rooted in facts and law. That part is undeniable. In particular, I myself found the portion on genocidal intent extremely convincing because the South African advocate showed very clearly how not only have statements of genocidal intent been made consistently at the highest levels of government for the last 3 months, but also that those genocidal instructions trickled down to the soldiers on the ground who filmed themselves expressing the same type of sentiment while they blew up entire neighborhoods. Now, that is just damning evidence. So generally, I think really there's no doubt that the South African team proved all the elements of genocide according to the convention. Now, on the other hand, the performance of the Israeli advocates was objectively weak. The arguments that they raised on the law, so for example, repeated references to October 7th, we know that there's no legal defense to carrying out genocide. So from a legal perspective, the reason why a state commits a genocide or what they believe they are reacting to can never be a legal defense to genocide. They also repeatedly invoked the notion of self-defense, which I don't think will find favor with the courts, once again, because you can't commit a genocide in self-defense. And in any event, we also know that the International Court of Justice has already decided in 2004 that Israel does not have a right of self-defense in accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter with respect to attacks emanating from the occupied Palestinian territory. So really the only way they could have saved themselves is to show that there was no genocidal intent, because again, the acts themselves are undeniable. But with respect to that, the most they could muster was to say that those hundreds of statements of genocidal intent that were part of South Africa's analysis are quote unquote random quotes. Now, I don't find that very convincing, and I certainly don't expect that the judges will. But that's just the weakness of their case on the law. And on the facts, it was a mess of epic proportions because quite simply, they are presenting a case that's just simply divorced from reality. I mean, you have at one point the Israeli advocate saying that Israel does not bomb hospitals, when I can actually think of a dozen instances where Israel bombed hospitals off the top of my head. They also said they don't target civilians. But, you know, there are words and there are facts, George, and they never once addressed the usage of hundreds of 2,000-pound unguided bombs on Gaza. And this was even confirmed by the US. And so therefore, how can you make an argument that you're not targeting civilians? They never addressed it once. So this really isn't very serious.
Well, we have a saying, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. And so it was asking their counsel quite a bit to make a defense. And they sank to the occasion, even getting their pages mixed up in their presentation. So